Good morning, everybody. I am having a hard time sharing my screen, so I don't know if you'll be able to watch me sketch this morning. Hmm, so frustrating. But well, uh, if you are new here, then you'll know that this is a show about. I want you to know this is a show about drawing, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just getting warmed up. I like to draw ellipses to kind of get the blood pumping. Um, But yeah, this is a drawing for tattooers on Guy Etchison Reinventing the Tattoo Network, where tattooers, collectors, and the curious are all encouraged to join us on these live streams and also in real world events. We're beaming out all week, and so you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're also available on all the major streaming platforms such as Spotify. But you can always learn about us by visiting reinventingthetattoo.com. And so, with that, I just wanted to invite anybody if you would like to join the stream today, you can find the link by visiting the homepage of reinventingthetattoo.com. At the bottom, you'll see a calendar of events. Click on Drawing for Tattooers. There, you'll find a link, and you can join the stream today. So, I wanted to do just a quick plug for an upcoming project. I got a chance to visit Dr. John Swerk last week. John Swerk is a researcher who is looking into what makes up our tattoo inks. This is an important topic, and Gabe and I got a chance to sit down with John Swerk and ask him some questions, as well as meet his research team. So we're going to edit that footage, and we're going to show that to you in the very near future. So let's see. Hey, there's Kyle. Good morning, Kyle.
Oh, morning, sir. How we doing?
I can't hear you, Kyle. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
good. There it is.
Oh, okay.
Well, we've got some people watching. Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you would love to join, there's a link at Reinventing the Tattoo. Also, feel free to hit us up in the chat. We're always checking the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, if you wouldn't mind, do you wanna lead drawing this morning? You want to lead some ellipses today?
Sure, why not?
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, we're gonna spotlight you if you get your tech up and running.
All right.
Today, everybody, we're actually going to
figure it out.
read a chapter in a book that I'm really excited about. But until then,
Yeah.
if you got your sketch pad out or your tablet, then you can draw along with Kyle. So thank you, Kyle. Put you up.
Of course. And then, cool. All right. So here's our ellipses.
Awesome.
So yeah, I don't know how you do exactly, James, but
No, that's exactly how I do it.
All right.
Exactly how I do
This
it.
is just warm up. I don't care what it looks like. I'm just getting the fingers moving, the hand moving, the wrist moving. We are just getting that stuff going, getting the creative juices flowing, and getting ready to get into all of our other stuff. And there's other, you can do the bigger ellipses, and then within the little ellipses, you can do smaller ones.
Yes.
Just all different shapes and sizes. We're stretching out all of the different angles that you might use for drawing. And we're just getting.
I won't lie. It's way more fun when other people are doing this with you. I won't lie. It really is. It's sort of like I guess I honestly do this to warm up. I honestly do, and I think that there is a big difference between like warming up and stretching, and this is really just a way of getting warmed up. Like you were saying, get the juices flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you Do you do anything to warm up besides? Obviously, you do this. So
Um, Sometimes when I'm just having like I don't know, like my warm up is just like maybe more of like um, just trying to build up shapes and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like doing the same motion of it of ellipses and just kind of scribbling around and stuff and then seeing what kind of happens. That's like my warm up stuff, but any type of movement works, you know. Any type of movement works.
no, that's fascinating. Well, I've been drawing with you for for years now,
Mhm.
and I do watch you do that. Like you'll be doodling, and then after after we draw for a couple hours, it's like there's this really incredible composition that came out of it. So, but yes, yeah, you're just moving around, and you're just it's almost there's almost a frenetic pace to it, right?
Hmm. Yeah, because I don't want to think about it too much because like thinking about it too much for me just like kind of like ruins the progress and it stops the progress of it all.
Yes.
Just kind of going by like, oh, that looks cool. Oh, that looks cool, and then like that's the entire motive, and just not really just thinking about it all or not judging or just letting it happen. You know, just letting it do its thing.
I like to as I'm working on them, I like you said, I don't like to want to think about it too much, and then all of a sudden I start giggling like an idiot because I'm like, oh my god, what did I do? What have I done? It's funny because it's again, it's like there's these failures, and we you want to laugh at them
Hmm.
uh, rather than get all frustrated or let it get you down, as it were.
Well, yeah, like if you're getting super frustrated with your drawings, like what's preventing you from just drawing something that makes you laugh or just having fun with something, you know? Like do like the opposite. Oh, like this is super frustrating. I can't get anywhere. All right, well, I'm just gonna stop and I'm gonna go do something else and I'm gonna go draw something silly. Just because like because I don't know, like I used to draw a bunch of silly stuff when I was younger and like trying to being serious all the time with like the tattooing and everything, which there is a seriousness to it that we have and keep, but like can't just be serious all the time. Um, Kind of have fun. The more fun you're having with something, the better you're gonna learn it.
Why
So
so serious?
exactly.
Why so serious? Yeah, before you know it, you're making something other than the little squiggles that you're making, right? You really are kind of doing something that's it's generating a new
Yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
generating a new thing.
Just letting it happen. Just going with the flow, bro.
Well, no, I think that's interesting because to be able to get into that state where you are, you know, really moving, really flowing. I mean, I believe it's a real thing. I really believe that actually happens.
Hmm.
But it does take a lot of practice and a lot of training, as it were, in order to get there. And you can't
Hmm.
just, go into it. It's something that happens in the course of drawing, sketching,
Hmm.
I don't know, like playing sports or cooking or surfing, I don't know, whatever. Any
Hmm.
any activity that you do using a hammer, let's say, right? Hammering
Hmm.
nails or something.
Hmm.
It just becomes like an extension of you, and you're not even thinking about it. You're just sort of doing it. You could even have a conversation,
Hmm.
which is really an interesting thing.
Hmm.
Like your conversation that you're having while you're doing something else seems so simple, but it's a multitasking situation when we can't really multitask, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But we're doing it anyway. So it's I don't know. I think it's really interesting. That's cool, Kyle. I'm just checking out what you're making. It looks like a clown.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm drawing, so just letting it
No,
go.
that's awesome, dude. No, that's
Just
awesome.
letting it happen.
Well, I like how you kind of scroll back a little bit,
Hmm.
and you get a longer view, as it were. And I think doing that helps you not get so focused on the details, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah,
You're
yeah. You
able to
definitely,
see bigger shapes,
yeah.
maybe like the value or the the tone of it, as it were.
If you like to refer things to like philosophical things like in life, um, if you get too focused on the tiny little things, you kind of forget about what the big picture is. Um,
Mm.
and so it's kind of the same thing, you know, like just kind of look at everything as a whole and then get back into the details. And, you know, like, I swear, man, everything is just balance. Is just trying to find balance. I swear that's it. It's just yeah,
No,
but yeah, definitely.
I think that's really nice. Talk. Can you talk more about that?
Well, yeah, because like it's like work life balance, and then when you're tattooing, the balance of like tattooing versus taking little breaks and like just I don't know the balance and everything. Um, it's I swear that's like 90% of the struggle sometimes. Well, that might be a little over exaggerating, but yeah, it's just kind of a pain in the butt to sit here and um, um, just try to find the balance and everything. You know, like when you're trying to come up with a composition, you want like this amount, percentage of this and this percentage of that, and it's just like trying to balance out the design that you're doing. Like if you're doing like a blue rose, and you've got to balance that out with other colors and stuff like that, and like trying to find the exact amount of the other colors that you need to use in order to balance out the whole piece, like the overall, the big picture thing. It's just yeah, it's so much fun.
Well, it's almost like too much to really think about, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like like you were talking about that there is a balance that you may strike, but um, trying to force it is unbalanced, right?
Yeah.
But also, I've heard of this condition that happens like with baseball players, for instance, where
hmm
they just one day wake up and they can't like play anymore, or they can't throw the ball, they can't do this, that, or the other.
hmm
Um, it's like they've got this paralysis from thinking about the game too much, as it were. I
hmm
feel like that is something that we could fall into. You just think about it too much and you lose that magic, as it were. Um,
Yeah.
not to
Yeah.
frighten anybody, but I think that there's always this danger that's inherent. Like
I mean, like,
a
but if you're
little
having
bit.
like a, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, if you're having like a lot of fun with what you're doing, like, you don't have to think about it as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point.
I think I don't know. Some people might enjoy. Um,
Now you've got this little character to a certain point, and you're working on him. How do you how do you stop working on this and then and move on to a new thing? I guess I'm talking about like thumbnails and stuff. Like
oh,
how do you
thumbnails.
what's your process like for like let's say that you really you're just creating something, maybe you're just having fun, and you would take this to a certain level of finish, but hypothetically let's say that you really wanted to come up with three versions of this type of uh, you know this a composition like this, or a subject like this, as it were. What would you How would you sort of know, like, all right, this thumbnail's good and it's time to move on to the next one?
Basically when the buzzer goes off of like, oh, you spent your time, like, all right, cool, like I'm just gonna erase it and then just kind of let it go, and I'm not gonna think about what I just drew, and then I'm gonna go on to the next thing and try to like make sure I'm doing something different than what I did, previous and stuff like that.
No, I like that a lot. So sometimes you think, sometimes you'll use like a timer, and then other times, sometimes it's not so structured, right? Like
hmm
I do find that uh, sometimes the timer doesn't really work for me.
hmm
I
hmm
want to be professional, right? And I want to make sure that I'm able to sort of keep the production high, but
hmm
also, you could have a timer, and then it's just you're almost like you're just subject to it, right? It becomes less fun, I
Hmm.
suppose,
Hmm.
which isn't always a, you know, we can't it can't all be fun, right?
Why not?
Well, I think that it's an important point that you're saying that, you want to have a good time, you want to enjoy it, and maybe there's something about like you could enjoy it and also it be difficult, right? It's a difficult thing.
Mm.
There's
Hmm.
something about it that's actually um, where you really challenge yourself or you really get out of your comfort zone, as it were. So
Hmm.
I think that's cool. But uh, I guess what I'm saying is um, it can't be all good all the time, right?
No, no,
It
yeah.
can't be all good all the time. And if that's what you're looking for, you'll be really disappointed, I think.
Hmm. 100%, because like it's the ebb and flow of everything, the balance of everything. You have good times, guess what? You're going to have bad times. You have bad times, guess what? There's going to be good times, type of thing.
Yes.
And everything in between. So,
Well, I think that you're really going to enjoy the book that I wanted to present today.
mhm.
It's a chapter from the book. I'm going to put the QR code up for people to check it out. Drawing lessons from the famous artist school. If Have you heard of this book before, Kyle?
No, I haven't.
So it's a book that mainly focuses on this. There was a school that opened up in the 30s and 40s. I don't know how long it went, but it had really famous instructors. So Norman Rockwell taught there, and Albert Dorn taught there. There was lots of really famous illustrators that taught at this school, and these are some of the lessons that have been written down from it.
Hmm.
So it's a really interesting book. There's a lot of really incredible illustrations and artworks from it. So I do think it's certainly like worthy to to put into your collection. But also, I'm hoping that we can kind of connect it to some of the stuff we're talking about. And then, of course, if you're watching this show, you're likely interested in tattoos, probably how to make your tattoos better. And so we don't teach you how to do that, like tattooing wise, but we do talk about the art part of it. So hopefully, as are learning how to do tattoos, and you don't ever stop. I don't think like some people, could probably claim that they have a mastery of doing tattoos, let's say,
Hmm.
but you don't ever want to, you know, quit learning stuff. I think,
Hmm.
it's, and there is really something to continuing your education, as it were, that I think is important. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the mission behind the show. What we're talking about, the art part.
Hmm.
So you learn from your colleagues, you learn from your mentors, but also you got to get out there and study the art that you really like, the things that you're
Hmm.
really interested in. And sometimes people aren't really interested in illustration, you know. I think a lot of times illustration, not to demean it, but illustration is really kind of more in like it is in the service of a story, right? Like if
Hmm.
you're illustrating something, you're trying to supplement like telling a story. Um, Fine art can kind of almost more be like art for art's sake, as it were. Uh,
Hmm.
it has a kind of uselessness, and that's that's a part that's like a part of what makes it important in a strange way. We've talked about this before, but with illustration, I think it can become fine art for sure. But it simply is this is something that you're using a narrative, you're using a story, and you're letting that like inspire the way that you depict space.
Hmm.
Because any image, I think, is really about space. It's really about
Hmm.
like shapes and light and composition, like how things are arranged. So, anyways, there's so much to learn. We'll never get it all. It'll be inexhaustible, and we'll always have something to talk about.
Which is amazing. Which makes me
Yeah,
happy.
yeah, yeah. As long as people keep showing up, then I guess it doesn't matter. Also, if nobody comes, so, we'll still hang out and do it because this is like super fun to do, and we get to connect with people all over the
Hmm.
place, and I think that's really the part that I really love about it.
Hmm.
That there is a community of people who like are into the same kind of thing, who are interested in like bettering their understanding of art and bringing it to their tattoos, as it were.
Hmm. All interchangeable. All helps out the other.
Well, I love this. Again, so you get warmed up a little bit, right? And then you also start, you know, getting into some sketching, right? You start doodling and sketching and stuff. Um, I had that. You're doing some advanced things. I can see you're cutting out pieces and you're reshaping them and stuff. I think that's awesome. There isn't any reason why you shouldn't be able to do that stuff.
Well, yeah,
I think
100%.
we get hung up on our preconceptions all the time, right?
Hmm.
About like what is allowed or something like that. Uh, I don't think that should really limit you. There's probably a line, right, an ethical line at some point, but using photographic reference or using different techniques in order to achieve something, that really feels like something that's people should feel comfortable doing, right? And
Well,
and
yeah,
probably
because
the artists that you admire probably do feel comfortable kind of using all of the tools they have at their disposal. So
it's just like the whole like, oh, taking this ear and then like moving it over or whatever. Like if I was doing it analog, like that, I'm just going to take out another piece of paper. I'm going to have to retrace everything and redraw everything just to move this ear over just a little bit.
hmm
So the, the same thing as that is like you can do analog. So like I don't see the any need to be like, oh well, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like, oh, it's a tool. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. So
right, right. No, I think that's really important, really important. But also, I would say that having limitations too. This is the thought. Uh, like you said, drawing analog, drawing on paper, and being limited by what you can and can't do
mm-hmm.
teaches you so much more, right? Than having all the fancy tools. I know we just said how important they are and so on and so forth, but yes, like also having these limitations, like you literally cannot do this sort of cut and paste and stretch stuff on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not an option. So being forced to have this limitation of this is where we sort of meet the limit. um, Again, I do think that it's really valuable not only to continue to go back to, but especially for um, people who want to you know learn how to use their digital tools even
Mm-hmm.
more effectively, as it were. I know that that may be like unpopular to say, I suppose, right? But
Well, no, it makes sense, you know. Um, in the circumstance of like, okay, well, I want to do this, but I can't do this, but like, how do I get there? You know, like the
right.
necessity is the mother of invention or whatever the heck that saying is, you know, type of
hmm
thing. Um, you
Definitely. Well, I think
spawn things out of that.
like we were just saying. I think you end up you build up this whole library uh, of limits, right? That you can then like sort of break, as it were, once you enter into this digital space, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
there's just something really valuable about that. We've talked about it too, I think, a bit. Where, for instance, if you uh, if you always use your thermofax to make your uh, stencils and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Then you never get this. You never get that joy of like hand cutting your own stencils. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's something really valuable about that experience. I think of like hand cutting everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
That it teaches you a lot, as it were. But it's also this really frustrating thing, right? You mess up where it goes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You tear your stencil on accident, all this, and you got to start all over. It's
Mm-hmm.
not super efficient time wise, I suppose, but again, you just there's something about it that uh, you learn something from it that can be so instructive. So sometimes it is beneficial, right, to take a step back, as it were.
Mm-hmm. So the book, what is it? Does
Oh,
it
the
go over
book,
just
yeah,
kind of everything, or just like exactly what
this book.
these the artists had learned from it, or does it just kind of like go over every? I don't know. What is the book on?
Well, that's when you're ready. I'm gonna share the book with everybody, and we're gonna read a chapter. We can usually read a chapter of a book and be within our you know uh, fair use.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
could be inside of fair use. So, but yes, it is telling the tale, right, of how these artists did their work. Because again, we see artists that we admire, and uh, I think it's easy to get sort of caught up in the I could never do that sort of a thought. Or
Mm-hmm.
even worse, the delusion, like, yeah, that's easy enough. I can just do that. Uh, it, what I find is, almost always the case is like we don't ever have this sort of direct, uh, access to the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, like this whole process of sketching, for instance, the doodling that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
it is a longer road that you end up taking to get to a finished product, right? Rather than just like, I'm going to sit down and draw this face perfectly with outlines and so on and so forth, right? Not saying they can't be done, because I'm sure you could find a video of somebody doing that sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but rather that the approach you take can lead to something that's actually even it's other than the sum of its parts, right? It is even more unexpected than you could have had otherwise. So again, having these little jams of doing sketches and the like, I think so important and so necessary. But yeah, let's do the book. Ready?
Yeah, yeah. Whenever you are, man.
Cool. All right. So I'll share. Yeah. So again, like I have the QR code down at the bottom. I'm gonna hide it now, but this is a drawing lessons from the famous artist school. I think you can probably see my screen. Yep, this is the book. You scan that code, it'll take you to a link to buy the book. So let's hide that so we can see what we're doing. Yes. So I'm gonna read through the book. We're gonna admire the pictures and hopefully have a conversation. I see that Spirit just hopped on.
All
Spirit, it's
right.
great to have you. Um, Go ahead and hop on whenever you're ready. So here's chapter 3 in the book, Drawing as a Tool for Seeing. Again, this is from Drawing Lessons from the Famous Artist School. Okay. So for each of the famous artists, drawing was a tool for seeing an integral aspect of artistic expression that allowed them to formulate and capture the fleeting essence of ideas and refine picture concepts. As we'll see in this chapter, creative approaches to drawing let the mind roam free and help ideas take shape. Norman Rockwell rarely had time to sketch uninterruptedly, unless he was traveling, an activity that refreshed him and took him away from the deadlines of a busy illustration practice. He traveled extensively throughout his life for both business and pleasure. This rare sketchbook page documents the artist's travels to France in 1932, where he recorded the architectural details of the historic Pont Neuf, the oldest standing bridge across the Seine River in Paris. All right, so let's scroll down. We'll see this. We'll see this doodle page. Pretty awesome, I think. You know what I mean? It's real
Mm-hmm.
scribbly. But this is Norman Rockwell. This is, we if you're familiar with his work, it's a very refined approach to illustration. And
Mm-hmm.
here we can see some of these scratchy sketches and stuff. You may find them beautiful, you may find them, disturbing. Don't know, but either way, uh, it's it's so interesting. This is just exactly what we were watching Kyle do just a second ago, sort of letting something come out of a frenetic drawing. Anyway, uh, Robert Fawcett, another artist who is part of this famous artist school, spoke for his fellow master artists when he wrote, quote, spend every spare moment developing the coordination of your eye and your hand to acquire greater resources for what is a difficult business at best. Do not be content with a few sketches. Make hundreds, thousands of complete studies, action sketches, composition notes, and accurate observations of the visible world all around you. This will train your brain to remember and your eye to be observant. Draw constantly, freely, searchingly, courageously, experimentally, lovingly. Forever draw, because what you put down is the measure of what you have seen. The more you draw, the more you will see. Uh, so again, I think it's not this notion about like, yeah, you got to draw every day, like you have to draw the same thing, but you do have to get your hand moving, right? There was that long list of all these different things that you could draw, and so I think when we get sort of stuck in a rut, as it were, and we're just you know not inspired to do our drawing, just get your hand moving, right? Again, like these warm ups that we talk about, sometimes doing that leads to something else, or pick a subject that you feel like drawing that at that time. Again, there might be some discomfort in making yourself do it, but choosing something that you can stand to spend some time with as a drawing. Again, this is this measure of what you have seen, and there's benefits that go beyond just that it's immediate drawing, as it were, right? something that Something that could lead to something bigger. All right, so in these pages shown below, sketches are what we see what Fawcett meant, right? So all of these sketches, here are some Robert Fawcett sketches, right? Just these really quick. I mean, it's pretty beautiful, but again, it's there's a real free sort of flowing movement to the line work. We were talking earlier about how you kind of achieve this state of flow where you are just reacting to the um, going with it, right? Uh, Again, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of practice to get into this freedom, as it were, where anything could transpire. And so, again, I wouldn't be put off by how accurate these rough sketches are. Instead, start to practice, right? Just start to be observant, and this is going to help you find out whatever it is that you have an affinity for, as it were. All right, here's some sketches. Ben Stahl. Ben Stahl's advice was specific. He recommended sketching every day. Your drawings may be only doodles, but they will free your imagination. If you practice constantly, and in his sketches, Stahl sometimes focuses on specific elements such as facial expressions or the movement and position of hands. At other times, his rough drawings block out underpaintings or underpinnings of a composition uh, with simple lines and tones. Right. So again, we can see a lot of specificity in these hands and the face of this woman to the left. Over here, just a simpler composition. There aren't any details. There are just these sort of large movements of this dark doorway or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but it frames, right? So it frames in these figures, and so we can see that they are relating to each other in some compositional way. Simple thing, right? Simple enough, but there's a real clarity again about space. Right? We see this space. There's elements in the foreground. There's a middle ground where all of the interest is but then there's also a background. There's also something behind, some space behind. If this were in service of a story that you knew the story about like this, this young person and their goat, you know what I mean? Then this illustration would supplement that. In this instance, I would put forward that there's more of a fine art element to this because again, it's an illustration of something, but we don't necessarily have access to that. So it almost has this kind of useless quality to it that again it's evocative and affective, but we don't know what it's necessarily pertaining to. Maybe you do, but I don't. So for me, it sort of serves in this role of kind of a fine art sort of mode. John Atherton. So these sketches, John Atherton took doodling a step further. He recommended doing 5-minute sketches as a practice for more developed drawings. These quick sketches of boats were designed to record facts that he would later use in a larger piece. Minor alterations from the first drawing, such as the streamlined arrangement of the rowboats and addition of distant hill, have a substantial visual impact. So it would take a second and check out what's going on. Again, all these boats, this this study on the left, the boats are very discombobulated. They're going all sorts of directions. When we look at this one on the right, now they're all pointed in a particular spot. It really draws the eye right there, I believe. Kind of almost all of the boats are really pointing at like one specific point in space. And then having this sort of hill in the background. Something about it, it kind of closes us in, if you like. That's just my reading of it. Like when I look at the one on the left, it's very open. It looks much faster. It looks like a much bigger sort of you know bay, or we're looking at the dock, and it's as far as the eye can see. But when we look over here on the right, not only we have the center of interest, putting a lot of visual pressure right here, sort of in the center lower third, if you like, but now there's this hill that we can sort of see in the background. We're kind of enclosed in a valley of sorts. So again, it kind of there's something about it that makes it feel more intimate, if you like. But yeah, just interpretation of space, right? I don't know. There's no story here for me. There might be one, right? Especially if your illustration for a book or for an article or whatever. But here, there just simply is the image, and so it's kind of like again function as like a bit of fine art. Fred Lukens, he agreed with Ben Stahl, quote, "If you learn to draw well, learn the structure and function of humans, the shapes of inanimate objects, it will give you a language and a vocabulary for meeting any artistic challenge," unquote. So the small but striking studies below, created in a variety of media from ink to pencil and colored pencil, are designed to hone his vision by capturing information about the world around him quickly and spontaneously. And so,
Now
yes,
that's
like,
interesting.
yeah. What could you go further about that?
Well, yeah, that's kind of one of the things, like it's like, um, it, it, it's the abstract pieces that make the piece, whole. Almost, it's the abstract pieces that make the piece realistic. You know, one of the things that I learned lately is that like being able to capture, just being able to see different shades and stuff is shapes. Um, as opposed to, yeah, just being able to see it as shapes has been uh, you know, very helpful for me.
I love that. And I've been looking at your work, Spirit. You've been sharing lots of stuff, and I can see that. I can see that you're using shapes in a very interesting way, and the compositions are. Uh, I think they're really beautiful. But that
Thank you.
is so. Talk about that a little bit more. Like when you're starting to sketch, how are you kind of like employing these ideas of like doodling and stuff?
So um I'm trying to see if I can pull something up. Um okay, so it's your basic, like when you're looking at an object, the way the light hits something, um it will form a shape, regardless. I mean, and that shape is an amalgamation of the three basic forms. It's a triangle, a circle, and a square. Somewhere that particular shape is a conglomerate of all of those three shapes. Um, and so if you're able to kind of just like replicate those exact shapes, then I feel as though that, the more realistic it is.
That's outstanding. Well, and so yeah, I like what you're saying. It's like we we may not perceive the shape first, or that know that we're kind of like encountering it first. We do get kind of lost in the surface of things, I think, a lot when we're sort of looking. But yes, the forms that we see, because light hits it and it forms, right. It shows us the planes, or whether it's rounded or whether it has there's different angles and stuff. uh, at base, there are going to have some kind of shape to them, like you say, so, and probably some relation to those very basic ones. And they're going to be arranged in some way, like uh, in space, as it were, right? Something is going to be in closer to my point of view. All these images, and I really don't think you can get away from it, but all these images, they kind of presuppose somebody looking from a single point, right? Like you're here standing and you look and you see something. And I mean, even like we're talking about abstraction, abstract art, or contemporary art or something. Uh, you have to you have to have a viewer. You have to have somebody that's looking at something, and so on and so forth. There's going to be this layering, right? There's at least going to be some element in front, some element behind, and so even before abstract art was created, officially, right here it is. We see that abstract art is happening, and it might not be readable, right? You may not be able to read it, uh, but if again we were talking about a visual language, if you've worked on your own visual language and you have something that makes sense to you, um, then it may very well prove that you're able to decipher the notes that you've taken. Hey, there's Creature's Cave. Good morning, Creature. Hope you're doing well. Um, all right, well let's continue on. All right, so here's a magazine cover, the Saturday Evening Post, and let's see. So this is Fred Lucan's. Here we can see, if we look at the left, there is there's somebody riding a bull, right? And there's a crowd of people watching. Uh, Pretty nice composition. But then we look at the cover, and it's so much more dynamic, isn't it? Right? So we tip this bull shape, and and then again, there's a little note here in the thumbnail sketch of the bull riding cowboy. Ludkins captures the important storytelling and compositional details for this Saturday Evening Post cover. His final painting adjusts the bull's posture to emphasize action, and uses the color red in the background figures rather than in the cowboy himself, as indicated in the sketch. And I think we can really see that, right? Like there's a big shift, and what we see is there's all this warm too, right? There's all these warm colors in the background. There's somebody in a really bright red shirt, really intense color, and then there's this white shirt. It's very neutral, but I would almost suggest that there's a lot of coolness in contrast to all the warm. So yeah, there's a like from this rough sketch, something else. Hey, make a couple of adjustments, right? There's a really interesting connection here between the tail and the fingers. This is almost a 90-degree angle, right? I mean, it's just looks like it's a little bit more obtuse, but it just very sharp sort of arrangement here. And the bull is it looks like they're about to fall off the page. Does that make sense? Right? It really looks like they're really pressing the composition off to the side here. And then there's this dude underneath, kind of funny, like, oh. Yeah, he's getting a good view. Anyway, so this is this is what we're talking about, right? This from abstraction, right, to something a little bit more concrete, uh, to almost this. There's almost a universal sort of notion that you can see here. There's figures and there's space. Whether you agree with bull riding or not, that's not really the point we're going for here. Just that you can depict your subject in a readable way, right? That there's again, from moving from legibility to readability, right? We could read this space, and there's all kinds of code there. The hats that people are wearing, there is a bull, there's fences and stuff. So all of the symbolic things are we're able to gather it rather than just sort of being stuck with this abstraction. You can get to more of a universal notion, which is nice. All right, so on to Norman Rockwell. So Norman Rockwell did illustrations for Poor Richard's Almanac. That was a Ben Franklin book, and these are the drawings that he made for it. Funny, right? They're like these are like kind of cute and stuff, and here we can just see a very gestural, imaginative sketch. I don't know if he was really looking at a person when he did this. It kind of feels like he wasn't, but at the same time, it is very convincing. It looks like a figure walking through space, and there's something about the way the lines are laid down that I think adds to the character of how we would read this fisher person, right? It's the fishing pole and stuff. So um,
I love
here's
how
a little
all of
note.
his stuff is just so
It,
loose. Just
it's
like there's
cool,
like
right?
there's just like no like real straight lines. Everything's just like
I feel like we can look at this and appreciate it, but like, how is it for you all? Like, when you're making your rough sketches, could you leave it so rough? Do you have
mm-hmm.
that confidence? Do you have that much confidence that you could leave it so sketchy and rough and just know, like, this is beautiful? Or even like, hey, I'm going to say this is beautiful. I I I would admit I struggle with that. I want to refine it. I want to make it, I don't know, look more mechanical, I suppose. But there's something really beautiful. Think about all
Well,
this wiggliness.
there's some homework for you, James.
I know.
You got to do like 5 drawings of just super loose stuff that just doesn't really have to have any definition. There you go.
Well, I do. I will say that I do it, and it comes from doing gesture sketches.
Oh yeah.
There's a figure drawing group that I like to go to here in town, and when we start off, we do really quick gesture sketches, and there's the time length. Again, like we were talking about timing your drawings, that amount of time, it is very constraining. And
Mm-hmm.
time is over. That's it. The pose moves. You can't really
Can't go
adjust it.
back to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could go back and you could sort of like you could do whatever you want. But I'm just saying, like, you if you do too much, you're going to lose that magic, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was that was beautiful about it, you could easily snuff it out. And so, yeah, it is. Well, that's the thing. I don't show that stuff all the time. So I guess Norman Rockwell didn't show a lot of this stuff either, because here
Mm-mm.
we are. We're looking at it. I don't know if anybody, if you knew this side of him, I guess you could assume like he does paintings and stuff. Um, but yeah, does aren't they just taken from photographs and so on and so forth? And it's like not really. I mean, he did use photographic reference, but there's a lot more that went into his practice overall, and it did really involve a lot of doodling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's other chapters in this book that I would definitely recommend checking out. You can see all the work that he would put into making a composition. It is humbling, to say the least, right? It's very humbling. So, um, well, here's a little side note. This now you try it. This might be something fun. You're saying homework and stuff, but let's let an object tell a story. So Norman Rockwell advocated a stream of consciousness approach to doodling, which inspired fresh ideas. He described using a quick drawing of a random object, saying, "I must start somewhere. And if I did not start with with the lamppost or something else, I would spend all day looking at that blank paper." The lamppost led Rockwell to consider who might be leaning against it, what his or her backstory might be, and his ideas blossomed from there. In the center of your paper, draw a simple object from life, from your imagination, whether a teapot, toothbrush, or a sleeping pet. Anything that captures your interest, and respond spontaneously to your initial sketch by including other related things in your drawing that might prompt an idea for a more developed picture. Yeah, I think that's could be such an interesting and fun thing to do. But as we continue here, um, yeah, I think this is a really interesting story. So let me share this one, right? So in addition to giving your eye and hand a thorough training in seeing and recording, sketching can be used as a part of your research for future projects. The page below from Austin Briggs Sketchbooks shows one way to do informative sketching, which can function like notes jotted down spur of the moment. Because of this habit of sketching constantly and in many different situations, Briggs had a wellspring of images to call on no matter what the subject matter of his next assignment might be. Whenever he could, Peter Hellick made a point of actually spending time in a setting that would incorporate into an illustration. For example, to research the backgrounds for an assignment featuring trains in the Hudson Valley, he used a motorized handcar to travel the rails for a day, sketching as he went. To him, quote, that day's work in the sun and wind being passed by the Empire State Express at 80 miles per hour in a flurry of grit and hot steam, and chattering between the dank and cavernous rocks at Garrison, where the sun never shines, these sensations constitute research of the finest sort, unquote. Right? So he went out and sketched, and he called that his day's work. I mean, that's I think that's pretty awesome, right? That is something that, right, you should be so lucky, right? That you can justify spending your whole day just going out and sketching. But of course, as an artist, you should be able to justify that, right? Again, it could lead to these bigger projects, or it's a part of the value proposition that you offer your
Mm-hmm.
your client, for example, that
Mm-hmm.
you actually went out and did this research and did these preliminary drawings that helped you come up with something that's more than they expected, let's say hypothetically. But again, there's a risk there, right? And being an artist, kind of your own business, as it were, you might very well, uh, you have the possibility for loss, as it were. So anyway, but that's, we draw that. I think that's a big part of it, is like getting out there and drawing
Mm-hmm.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what the aesthetic you really are drawn to and that you really like. I think that's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is you like to do. I like to do a traditional American, neo-traditional, biomech, photorealism, or some kind of, I don't, even if you're like into this ignorant style, right? Whatever it is you like, doing these sort of out in the world sketching practices, I think, can be invaluable, and that's what this book is really sort of espousing as well.
Well, yeah, it's just like trying to learn another language, like going out there and sketching, you're trying to build up your vocabulary like you were talking about earlier. because it you're trying to tell a story, a visual language, of sorts. So like to go out there and just to study the words, because like you got to go over the words again and again and again and again to really learn what this language is gonna, how to speak this language. Like there's like no difference, going out in the world and going over the words again and again and again and again, and what works, what doesn't work, type of thing, and trying to enunciate everything 100% correctly. It can be hard, you know.
Right, and it might not be possible.
Yeah.
But if we put emphasis on the correct syllable,
Mm-hmm.
then we're able to communicate effectively, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
There might always be this gap, right, where whatever it is you were trying to express, whatever it is that you were going for, it may not actually ever be truly uh, understood. Maybe by you, maybe by the other person that you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to express it to. But that's where I think this beauty comes from, right? And that's where it's in that failure and it's in that gap. Like that's where it's located. That's where, that's where we find beautiful things and experience itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like we make stuff for other people, we communicate to them in some way. And uh, it's that slippage probably. That's where there's room for this interpretation of what it is you like and what it is you think is important. And where you can criticize if you like where, if it were perfect, you would have to agree. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So if you don't agree, then yes, then there's some note of imperfection in that, and it's that uh, it's that failure that makes that possible, which is it's pretty interesting, right? So here's this really wonderful little sketch. So Briggs sketched this restaurant interior, which to him had a European feel, to serve as a reference for a setting in some future story illustration. Briggs wrote, quote, "A fundamental of my approach is to bring as much as possible of my own experience to every job that I do," unquote. Right? I think we couldn't help but to do that, but that's that would probably be the where the work is. It's like you have to get out and have more experience, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real life is the source, if you like, right? And we do need to look at the work of others, and we need to copy it to gather sort of our own sense of ourselves, as it were. Not to present somebody else's work as our own, but that's an important thing. But the source would be like getting out there, touching the grass, as it were, drawing from life, all of that stuff. Those are the ways that you're going to like Kyle, to your point, the increase this vocabulary that you may find useful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Bigger vocab, the better the stories.
yeah, definitely. But again, it might also be there might also be a way where it makes your offering a bit more specific, as it were, right? You're actually sort of communicating to a specific audience. I like this idea too that if you watch cartoons when you're younger, there's probably funny moments, like things that are, things that you laugh at. And then like maybe older people in the room are watching it and they're laughing at other times and you don't get the joke, right? And then it's not until you get that perspective shift, right? You get older, you get more experience, and then you get like all the subversive humor in a cartoon, let's say, but the kids are laughing at something else, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
And
No,
again,
no, no, I
there's
get
like
it.
all this vocab that's happening back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that makes total sense, because like everybody's gonna see something a little bit different.
So in these on location sketches, Helk used his exacting powers of observation to record small significant details for future use, even making hand notes to underscore the important information. He counseled his students to get into the habit of noticing the elements that catch your attention in a scene. Then use those elements in that position or lighting to build your compositions, unquote. In Helk's words, drama was achieved by the effective use of verticals, horizontals, and diagonals. In this preliminary sketch for a painting of two locomotives traveling in different directions, he was aiming for a feeling of vitality and excitement achieved by having them cross at right angles. This impression of speed was augmented by the way Helk drew the tilting elliptical shapes of the lower engine's wheels. So we're looking at this little train illustration over here, and again, just very has all these ellipses. I think they're beautiful, but they're going in a particular direction. It reads like motion. Right? It also reads like perspective too. Um, so a simple idea: these two trains, they're crossing each other, but it's complicated. How do you achieve this sort of a thing? You might start with a really rough sketch, but then you could take it and make it, a bit more refined as your technical capacity would allow you. Anyway, again, just this really, really interesting sort of diagonal, sort of going across each other. That really adds a lot of excitement and motion to it. All right. In the mid 1950s, Rockwell traveled around the world on assignment for Pan American Airlines for an ad campaign that brought him to different cities in 13 countries, from England, France, and Italy to Lebanon, Turkey, and Pakistan, Thailand, and Japan, which were Pan Am hubs. His goal was to capture the local color and character of each location in spontaneous sketches, focusing on people and places in a random arrangement of elements on his page. All right, so here's all these sketches and stuff. Uh, again, it's there might there might be interesting ways to theorize this as sort of a gaze of the colonizer and stuff, but we won't get into that right now. I do think that there's a certainly like there's a also a respect like that there was an actual sort of presentation of this, right? As you went
Hmm.
to these places, this is what that culture was, right? So again, there's there was an actuality to it, which I think is also very, again, respectful and endearing in real ways, right? So, um, so not to put the criticism aside, but also to sort of just appreciate again the things that we're talking about. So here we can see,
Mm.
this looks, I don't know, let's see, Turkey, right? So again, there's a there's a real, I think, sort of attention to details and stuff, and there's here we have like several different intersections of different cultures that are living in one place. This looks like London, right? Tower of London. There is a beef eater right there, right? Uh, there's the guard. Um, I think there's a lot of really strong vertical lines in this, which may again sort of allude to sort of cultural notions, which is kind of an interesting way to put it. Over here on the right, we see it looks like Japan, right? I think that's what
Hmm.
the note tells us. But again, there seems to be a real deference and attention to detail, which is really quite wonderful. Pan Am be this airline, right? It would take you all over the world and stuff. So you would encounter these sorts of places and these sorts of spaces. So um, so how wonderful that would have been, I think, uh, to sort of travel the world, right, and try to explore it through your drawing.
Yeah, to try to capture an entire culture, just in a few amount of lines. Like, holy cow, dude.
It's yeah, it's a tall order to be sure, but certainly uh, like you'd have to generalize in certain ways, right? Like
Hmm.
how would you think about it, like how could you sketch something that was you know enigmatic of your own kind of you know place where you're at? I don't know if it's possible. Certainly
Hmm.
it would sort of presuppose a lot of stuff, um but again, I think that's the risk we have to take as artists. We have to engage in that sort of thing,
Hmm.
um I mean, there's always going to be you're always going to take up a position. Like you're always going to have like I'm here. This is where my point of this is my perspective.
Hmm.
And so I think you have to engage with that.
Hmm.
Anyways, so here's a lighthouse, very very beautiful, and I like in this particular illustration, there's this highlight right here, right? It's cool, kind of a pale blue, but blue, right? It looks the same as this sky back here. And as we see this lighthouse illustration, I think what's so interesting is, when you're painting a landscape, it's difficult to get that intensity of the blue sky to be just what you want, and then also keep it as light in value as you need it to be. And so in this instance, I think we can really see that the sky itself almost takes up a middle tone, if you like. And then
Mhm.
we were able to have these really light areas of the house is light. Um, the lighthouse is very light. And then the highlights on it, they're not super blown out like crazy, crazy bright white. They're going to be this little pale blue. Um, Again, for like the local color, the local value of these
Mhm.
portions. Um, but again, it just makes it slightly lighter than the sky itself. And so everything kind of situates, and it, again, is about space. We have elements in the foreground, some rocks. You could assume that's like the seaside, right? There's fresh water. Uh, there's the clothesline, so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that we can infer, but again, we don't necessarily have a narrative to go with it. Uh,
Mhm.
and and so again, I think there's a real like relationship to what could be considered like a fine art mode here. So Stephen Donhos, Lighthouse Studies and Painting, study on pencil and paper, and then the final one is gouache on board. If you've never tried gouache, I think it's a very challenging media, but it also can be very beautiful.
Mhm.
Uh, it dries a bit darker than it looks, so you you have to sort of get used to how it works. But anyways, Danos began this painting with a rough sketch of the lighthouse and its surroundings. As he began to develop the details, he made additional sketches at different elements of his composition, adding spots of color as a kind of mnemonic to remind himself of what he had noticed on location sketching. Again, here's a really this is a really nice note, right? These little prompts, calls to action. Now you try it, creating snapshots, create a quick sketches of the world around you by making 4 different drawings inspired by the same location. Note your observations about color, mood, and detail on your page, as Stephen Donhos did. Sketch an inanimate object such as a car or an appliance or utensil. Sketch a living thing such as a person, an animal, or type of foliage. Sketch a broad sweep of your environment in simple strokes to capture the scene. Consider which drawing might lend itself to further development and take it to the next level. Uh, yeah, I think that's a nice answer to what we were just sort of talking about. Like, how do you approach trying to represent a particular space, particular place,
Mhm.
uh, through the work, right? You have to work on it. You have to try lots of different things, and then it'll occur to you like what is the most succinct way to represent this,
Mhm.
and those might be unconscious notions that come to the fore. Well, so there's a let me jump here. I'm going to jump to this little one because this is again a Norman Rockwell, and then we'll finish up with this little section here.
Okay.
Okay, so sketching for greater clarity, Norman Rockwell's rough preliminary sketches were the first depictions of his ideas. He began each modeling session by showing his thumbnails to his models and describing the concept for his new illustration. Then he would strike the poses himself and enthusiastically act out each part to demonstrate what he wanted, getting his performers into the spirit. The camera was also an integral part of his process as it captured the nuances of expression and the difficult to maintain positions that he coaxed from his models. Um, so, well, let me just read this bit and then we'll go down. In New Television Antenna, Rockwell measures the promise of new technology against the historical past and invites our consideration of whether television may become the quote religion unquote of the future, as suggested by the church steeple. The artist's conceptual drawings increased in detail as his idea for the 1949 Saturday Evening Post cover crystallizes. So, Hopefully that's showing up well, right? We can see this very rough doodle, right? This is like a Kyle Olsen doodle over here. You know what I'm saying? Awesome. But yeah, but I mean, it's like if we just start with it, if we stopped here, it'd be like, what the hell is this? I think it's easy to dismiss, right? And
Mhm.
then here's a little bit more of a tonal scheme, right? We can sort of see that there's a little bit of relationship of what's darker, what's the middle, what's light. This sketch, right, where we see this serviceman like kind of putting up the antenna and stuff. Um, Somebody seems to be excited. He's like pushing a play button here, I guess. I don't know.
I think he's
Whatever
like
the
pointing
hell.
to the TV.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. He's like, yeah, look at my TV is on. Yeah, will this become there's there's the icon of religion behind here, right? This church
Mhm.
steeple. Um, and likely a crucifix on top, and it is below, right? Visually below this new this new icon,
Hmm.
this new icon of religiosity, right? The technology, right? So anyway, interesting premise. So here we do, some preliminary photographs, keeping in mind the relationship of where the viewer is supposed to be. Right here we are, right? Likely our eye level or where, however high we are, is I don't know, like right there ish, something like that. We're kind of looking up at this person. We're certainly looking up at this antenna. It's guy. Yeah, this kind of looks like right where our eye level is.
Mhm.
Kind of composing it, so on and so forth, and then bam, this is the painting. I don't know. Hopefully you can. I think you can pretty much see it. Um, he's certainly pointing at the TV. You can see it right there. Just spectacular painting, obviously,
Mhm.
but I love watching the process, right? From that very humble doodle to
Mhm.
something a lot more nuanced and refined, as you like. Um, and again, there is there's a certain interpretation that we can start to come to. All that stuff that we were talking about, here's the church and here's the steeple and there are the people and all that stuff. Like
Mhm.
we don't we don't have anything that necessarily guarantees that that's the right interpretation. Uh, this could easily just as easily be about class, right? Like economic class or something. Could
Mhm.
also could be about a lot of things. But I think that's what art opens up for us. Is this again? There's the gap where we'll have to sort of interpret things and can put our own experience into what it is we're seeing. So there wouldn't necessarily be um, a right interpretation. There may be some interpretations that could be, you know, better than others. I think that would be. I think that would have to be true. But um, with this one, it's just amazing to me. I think it's beautiful and also very intriguing. Yeah, very intriguing. Well, so this is the book. Let me see if I can pop it up here. The book is this book, right? So check it out. I think there's a lot more to it. There's more to this chapter really, but there's a lot to this book, and I think it's very cool. Um, I would like to just real quick. I want to replace my screen and yeah, this. So I'm just going to replace this with that. This is reinventing the tattoo.
Mhm.
So hopefully I can scroll through. Yeah. So yeah, what I'm showing right now is this one, reinventing the tattoo, and yeah, there's a code for it. If you want to learn more, scan this code. It's in the upper left hand of the screen. QR code takes you right to reinventing the tattoo, where you can gain access to this incredible book by Guy Etchison. Thank you, Guy, for writing this book. But let's just go over this real quick. I think that it really does relate very very nicely to what we were just talking about. And so
Mm-hmm.
thumbnailing. Uh, this is in the portion of the 101, drawing a brief primer, where Guy talks about how important drawing is. So let me just zoom in a little bit so we can all read it, right? Thumbnailing. One common bad habit is to get involved with detail too early in the drawing process. Maybe the design will be featuring a face, and the artist might be excited about the face and have ideas on how they want it to look. As a result, the facial features end up getting dialed in before the rest of the composition has been established. The thumbnailing step is intended to prevent these problems. The idea is to start the design process at a small enough size that it's not really an option to get lost in details, causing those initial efforts to be directed towards rough layout instead. By rough layout, I mean the sizing and positioning of the design elements. We call these thumbnail sketches because of their small size. For me, this means somewhere between postage stamp size and playing card size. While working digitally, it simply means to shrink the canvas to that size. I do most of my thumbnailing in graphite on paper, mainly because it is the most intuitive to me from long practice. Many younger artists may be most comfortable doing these at digital, but there is no correct answer except that it should be the medium you feel most comfortable and intuitive while using. So here we see all the kinds of like cool Guy Aitchison thumbnails. They're awesome. They are cool, but again, it's like uh, looks like you just kind of pushed it a little bit, so they became just a little bit more legible, as it were. Um, we can read it as space, certainly, as like objects in space. But again, I don't have any access to a story behind this. It's more about like there's these elements and they're kind of in space. Um, there may be a story, right? The story of like where the light's coming from, there may be sort of symbolic things that you could sort of glean from it, but instead, uh, again, that would all be interpretive. These are in the service of sort of depicting space rather than being particularly narrative. And I think Guy would say that they're not narrative. I think he would certainly say they're abstract, um, but they have a form to them, right? They're abstractions that are very formful and relate to a certain degree of perspective and light and stuff. So, and the body, frankly, because that's what they're ultimate. A lot of these are ultimately going to end up as tattoos on somebody's body. So we could see, you know, I don't know, it looks like a neck or something, like, this kind of structure on the back of somebody's neck or whatever. All right, so above is a small uh, painting thumbnails, right? It shows two versions of the same small sketch exploring different positive, negative relationships for a neck tattoo. These are all graphed on paper in a small sketchbook. You see in the first example how we've subdivided the page and done several very small sketches. At this size, even the shading takes only a minute or two and allows for a quick exploration of the pos-neg relationship, as well as use of gradients. If I find something that needs to be changed, often it's easier to just start a new sketch than to erase and alter existing sketches. If I make a good sketch that I like, I may do a couple slightly altered versions of it just for good measure. I'll virtually never stop at the first sketch. I think that's what we've really been sort of seeing with all these famous artists that we were looking at. Right? This next figure is an example of thumbnailing process that I use. On the left side of the canvas, I'll subdivide the remaining area into 4 sections, in this case ovals, and they'll be marked out. I'll often size my canvas on the tablet screen so the ovals are no larger than a playing card size. It's really emphasizing this jurisdiction of what's within the movement of your wrist, right? Like how far could you move your wrist? Um, you know, again, you can get your arm warmed up. You can use your wrist, a little bit, but again, the size is important for this thumbnail process. You don't want to go too big and too detailed right away. You want to be able to have some sort of like abstract movement here. So this example is from one of our Monday night exercises where we start each session by doing 4 quick thumbnails, 3 to 5 minutes each. I'll take this moment to remind the members that these exercises are highly recommended. So, again, this is a plug for the Monday night subscribers exclusive drawing group led by Sandy McAndrews. So very fun night of drawing that we many of us here like to get involved in. So if you want to learn more, visit Reinventing the Tattoo and sign up for it. All right. Part of the reason for doing multiple sketches on the same panel, paper, or pixel is to remind myself that I'm busting out a few quick sketches. The temptation to start development and detail always is there, even with the smallest of sketches. I've found that when I've started by subdividing the sheet, I will feel committed to filling out all the spaces that I've outlined. And in general, I'll be thinking more quickly. It's part of a daily reinforcement of what I believe is an important positive drawing habit. Start with a number of quick thumbnails before committing to the development stage. In some cases, I'll end up back at the first sketch. This first one is often a combination of elements that I had initially thought as the most obvious, and in subsequent sketches, sometimes I won't find a better one. But this is rare. Most times, the first sketch is visibly the worst, the initial missteps taken to get the drawing process started. I will sometimes find that I don't have a favorite sketch in the batch. In these cases, I'll look for the best parts of each sketch and see if there are ways that I can combine some of these elements into a single drawing. With the pumpkin sketches, the decisions made about size and placement. The fourth drawing were informed by doing the first three. So I felt it was the best pick. So again, kind of going through the process, something came out of it, right? A composition or an arrangement of the elements in space. It led to this, right? Sort of a longer road to get to the thing that you wanted. But you didn't even know you wanted it. Just being honest. You know what I mean? Like you didn't know this arrangement existed until you stumbled upon it, as it were. Okay, once a preferred thumbnail sketch has been selected, the one that has the best bones of a good drawing, then development can begin. For me, this will often happen with fairly small scale too. When doing this development step digitally, I'll duplicate the layer of my grid of small sketches, turn off one of them and expand the sketch, and I'll want to fill in most of the canvas. The whole canvas is then made fairly small on the screen, uh, similar to the size of my 4-inch by 6-inch sketchbook. Once I've dialed in the basic placement and flow, I'll allow myself the option for zooming in and getting more particular. So again, sketchbook, right? Still working on graphite. Started from a rough kind of idea, but here we go. We're getting a lot more dialed in, a lot more detailed. Again, I think we're seeing this process repeated, not only here as it pertains to this particular aspect of designing biomechanical tattoos, but other illustrations too. We're watching that. If I'm doing this development step on paper, I'm moved to a full size of my small 4x6, as shown above. These graphite drawings took a bit more time than the thumbnails, more like 45 minutes to an hour. Working on paper, there isn't an easy option of resizing. Although if you really like the flow and proportions of your rough, you can always print it larger in the development using tracing paper. These are analog equivalents to some important digital tools. Like we were talking about earlier, like if you work analog, you work with paper, there's limitations. Some of these can be very informative to how you would approach your digital tools. So if you really have, again, you're very comfortable digitally working, you've only ever really used digital tools, you may find something really informative about taking a step back, as it were, and drawing on paper. And then again, you work on paper, that's where you feel comfortable, awesome. But here, Guy is saying, like, yeah, I've worked on paper for a long time, but I've moved into the digital age as well. So he's advocating using both, using digital tools as well as using paper and pencil. I think again, to Kyle's point earlier, balance, right? You're end up balancing some of these approaches. There's a very specific reason why I recommend doing this stage of development at this size. Flow. Good flow is hard to fake, but you'll find that if you don't overthink the process and let your hand find its natural movements by drawing quick, loose gestures, most of the lines in the design will appear fluid. At this particular size, the hand is able to navigate around the entire drawing without requiring the efforts of the whole arm to move it. This places the entire drawing area within the jurisdiction of the bones and muscles of the hand, which possesses their own fluid mechanics, which as an artist you want to tap into to make good use. Right. So, and then you've heard the term, quote, the artist's hand, unquote, which refers to the particular style and look of each artist's drawings. This is a thing that happens partly because of the artist's preferences and tastes, but also largely as a result of the particular size and structure of the hand itself. Every hand is unique, and we each use our hands a little differently. By developing the drawing at the modest size, you'll be able to tap directly into the flow and structure of your physical anatomy and bodies. You'll find that there are certain diagonal movements, S curves, and arcs that flow from you almost effortlessly. These smooth arcs are much harder to lay out at larger scale because they require the efforts of the arm and wrist all working together, which can compromise the simple purity of the movement. So, and this is really what I wanted to get to, is this thumbnailing process, right? Very modest, humble kind of sketchiness leading to this very dramatic, enigmatic tattoo, right? It's very, it's very beautiful. There's a lot of challenges in there too, because we can see there's cover-ups and stuff that are going on. But again, you can't just get to this. It takes a development. It takes a series of practices, if you like, but also constantly working on and refining and building up your visual vocabulary, if you like. So anyway, that's enough. If you want more, then you can you can get the book at reinventingthetattoo.com. It's a digital form, so it's always being added to. And friend of the show and fellow streamer Jason Leeser has a great chapter on Procreate in there. So, all right. Okay, let's do this one. Yeah. All right. There's that. Well, let's what do you all think?
It's super important stuff to where it's just you're getting the idea down, not worrying about the detail. You're just looking at like the basics of the idea, and to like kind of just build from there. Like if you're writing a story, you've got to write out an outline of general ideas and stuff like that, and you just got to figure out how to put that book together, type of thing. So it's essentially kind of the same concept where you're just like you're not worried about detail. You just basic shapes, loose, of just like the general idea, and do that general idea in a few different ways, and then see which one you like the most, and then build that story from there. And so it's like super important to do that. And then like the whole like keeping everything small, the importance of that is because like you're only limited so much room, so you've got to use like you're going to emphasize like the absolute most important parts of that with a simplicity. So if it's super simple and readable down here, it's gonna be super readable and legible from across the room when it's fully done, type of thing. So like it's just it's super important. I know I used to do it for years and years and years, to where I'd like go to draw a face, and then I would start working on the eye, and then I would just focus on the eye, and I wouldn't do anything else. And then by the time I got done with the drawing, I'm like, well, I'm kind of bored of this, and I've just drawn an eye. I haven't drawn an entire face. So it's like don't jump too quick to the details. Like basic idea, slowly build it up. So it's all super important part of the process.
I relate to that. I really do. Everything you just said, I really relate to that. Yeah, I think too. It's like to Spirit's point, talking about how these abstract shapes, they start to form something that has three-dimensional, qualities. You have to start there with this kind of creating the world, as it were, and it's easier to do when it's at a smaller size, right? You can't get into too much of the all the details, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And so why do we keep talking about this? Why do we keep talking, like every day, like every day we talk about it? Because it's so it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And I find that when I paint myself into a proverbial corner when I get to this point where it's like, I feel stuck. Sometimes I have to go back a few steps and start over,
Mm-hmm.
start the process over, and approach it from, more of this abstracted point, so it can become what it needs to be. Nobody's perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all on tight deadlines, and so sometimes I'm sure we just sort of like, you know, it's good enough. It happens. It has to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I but that's why we keep talking about it, right? That you are gonna be able to draw your way out of this problem that you find yourself in. Only you're the only one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Whoever you are out there, if you're watching us, right? You're the one. You're the one to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can guarantee for you that you're making the right artistic choices.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Your client may like it. That's cool. You may not like it. I don't know. But you're the only one that can make those decisions, for yourself and for the work that you end up ultimately creating. And there's no guarantee. There's
Mm-hmm.
no guarantee. Um, but yeah, no, that was the thought about today. Again, this book, I don't know if it's backwards for you, but the Drawing Lessons from the Famous Artist School is a cool book. Uh, you can pick it up and put it in your collection. You're gonna get you're gonna pick up some really great tips. And then Reinventing the Tattoo. I've been reading that book for 25 years. And I still get shit out of it. You know what I mean? I still get stuff out of that book. It's an incredible book.
Mm-hmm.
It's an art book that's really centered or oriented around like making and designing tattoos and stuff. So, um, yeah, yeah, creature. So let's see. Yeah, me. You said I'm the one. LOL. Of course. Yeah, you're the one that determines what it is you do as an artist and the choices that you make. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you are the one to make those choices, those decisions. So anyway, yeah, Reinventing the Tattoo. It's an amazing book. Again, in this case, it's a digital one. I get a lot out of it. I always have, and
Mm-hmm.
so again, I'm grateful. Yep, I am grateful. Yes, creature. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I hope you're doing well, creature. It's great that you're in the chat. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, we're about an hour and a half. I want to plug one more time. Got an upcoming interview that I did. It's in the editing stage. So Gabe Ripley is going to make me do it. I'm not very like experienced with editing stuff, but again, I'm going to go for it. We did an interview with researcher John Swerk. He is doing incredible research into what makes up tattoo ink. There's a lot of really interesting, let's call it interesting, but also it can be worrying developments on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is going to regulate tattoo inks. They've never done this before. There has been a few recalls, throughout history, just a few. But the FDA has never regulated tattoo inks before. They're going to start. The law's already passed. This is what I'm saying. Like, it's not like, it's not like the law, the laws has passed. Now the rules are being written. So there are certain organizations that the FDA is going to look to help guide them.
Mm-hmm.
AFTO is one, and then the Alliance of Professional Tattooists, that's another one. The FDA is gonna like they're gonna want some guidance as they're making up the rules on what happens to our to tattoo inks, like what's allowable. John's work is doing research. He's telling he's starting to lay the groundwork for what will be the scientific basis for making the claims about that this is what's in tattooing, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What we got to in the interview, which I thought was really important, was that we are in no place to make any claims about health or safety yet. right? So if you hear people talking about that tattoo ink is dangerous, you can't say that yet. But also, you can't say tattoo ink is not dangerous. I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, you can't make either claim yet. There isn't any like data to support this. We can have anecdotal like observations. Like I've done tattoos for 20 plus years or whatever, and I've never seen a health crisis, so on and so forth. That may be true, but there needs to be more research. And so working with the scientific
always.
community, I think, is vital to this particular stage. I did an interview with a researcher who's working in this area, and I'm going to share it with you all. I think it's a really it was a really fascinating interview, and I'm just plugging it right now. Hopefully, we'll have that up for you very soon. Were you both aware of about the upcoming regulations on ink? I've talked about it a couple times.
Yeah, just a couple.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I was aware of
to
it.
see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was aware of it. The guy I get my ink from, he kind of talks about, just the regulations. So I understand the dynamic is probably one of the best, least toxic inks that you can get.
Well, we just don't know yet, and we can't even say. You know what I mean? We can't really say that yet. We can't say anything.
Yeah, we can't say anything.
The point of the interview is that the ink companies, ink manufacturers are not labeling their inks accurately. What's actually in it is not what's listed on the safety sheets. So, right, there's no recommendation here of any specific brand, right? We're not sponsored by any ink company currently, so we don't have any conflict of interest here. And I'm not saying that you should get one or the other, but I would suggest to be aware, right? To get involved. These are important things. We can't make any discernments yet. We just can't. Outside of the ones that we've always already made, the ones that we know, you trust an ink brand because you always have, because people you work with do, because you've always used it and you've had great results. I think that's great evidence at this point, to confirm what you already know. But we can't say that this is safer than that or what have you. It's just not something that can be said yet. So, anyway, Spirit, who is with you? Who's that with you?
My baby girl, Leilani Zahara Henderson. She wanted to say hello.
Well, hello, Leilani. So I didn't recognize you. You're growing so quickly.
Yeah.
I've seen you months ago.
Got another one. Her brother is cooking in the oven right now.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, man.
That's right. Yep. She's getting big. We're excited to see. But yeah, this is an interesting topic. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how the inks go, what happens, what comes about, what needs to change. Because we're going to benefit one way or the other, regardless of how intimidating it is. It's good will come out of it. So,
well, I think that the thing to remember, right? There's a lot of people who they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear it. They maybe don't believe in it. So they may be unreachable. You know what I mean? They just may not be ever interested in it until it happens. Until something happens, which will be, it will impact. It's going to impact everybody that does tattoos, right? If you do tattoos, it's going to impact you. Just you do permanent cosmetics, if you do any kind of tattoo work at all. It's
Mhm.
there's going to be new rules. So, but again, I'm interested in it. I'm trying to make us all aware of it. What is true is that we can't speak to anything yet. There's so much more work that has to go into the research. But again, this is not to discount like all of our collected experience, right?
Mhm.
You all here, and everybody that's watching, and your whole network of people that have tattooed for a long, long time have a lot of knowledge about this. So we do need to like reach out to this larger community, larger industry, um, and we need to gather all that information. That's a valuable piece as well. But um, again, it like I'm not. Uh, I would love to see the industry, of course, flourish, and for things to be, as safe as they can be. And I'm also very suspicious about like governmental overregulation. But again, there's not anything that you can do to totally stop it. It's going to happen.
Mhm.
That's a fact. It's going to
Mhm.
happen.
Mhm.
So, but how do we mitigate it? Right. Again, I joined the APT in large part for this reason, and that's something that I think is something to consider. So not to proselytize for them, but also to say that we at the APT, we're all, we're working on this, and if you want to join in, feel invited to, to come aboard and see what you can do as well.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's the show. This has been so much fun to again, Kyle. Thank you for leading drawing today. You saved the day. I'm working on it. I got, I got some, I'm working. I got some tech issues, um, but I appreciate you being here. Spirit, is so great to see you. See Leilani there. She's growing up so fast. Growing up on the show.
Mhm.
Growing up on the show with us. So I hope that you enjoyed
Yeah, that's right.
conversating about, and I hope also that like you get a chance to not only check out the book that we're reading today, famous lessons from the or drawing lessons from the famous artist school, very cool, but also uh, reinventing. Check out reinventing. One more QR code for the book. Yeah, scan now.
Mhm.
So some upcoming stuff. Hell City. Hell City is coming to Columbus again, and it's also going to be in Phoenix, I believe, this year.
Hopefully so.
17th through the 19th of May in Columbus, and then August 23rd through the 25th. So uh, get your tickets now, and I'll see you in Hell City. That is, can't wait. Hell City is going to be awesome. It's a really great convention, and so Hell City, uh, the Tattooerpreneur Conference, a unique event focused on business for studio owners and tattoo artists, tattooing workshops, and more. So, Tattooerpreneur Conference, you can register scanning this QR code. It's going to be June 23rd through the 25th. Can't wait for that. Tattoo Now. Tattoo Now is technology for tattooers. There's all kinds of sorry, there's all kinds of solutions to your communication issues. So be sure to check out Tattoo Now. Ask for Gabe. A little later on this year, Paradise Tattoo Gathering. Of course, Paradise Tattoo Gathering. Kyle, I know you're going to Paradise.
Yep, I'll be there.
It's amazing.
I'm
Spirit,
a
I hope
going.
I hope you can make it this year, man. It'd be great to see you, but no pressure. But no pressure. It is an incredible
Yeah, well,
experience.
I definitely like
So
making
many
one day.
artists.
Absolutely.
Well, there's
It'd be cool
yeah,
to see you.
it'd be great to see you, man. It really would. So but yeah, one of these days we're all gonna catch up. So yeah, live streams, real world events, um, you know, reinventing the tattoo. Again, the QR code up in the upper corner, you can scan and it'll take you right to the homepage. I think that's all the plugging that we're gonna do. Why don't we do some sign-offs, and then we'll get the heck out of here. So, Spirit, where can we find you at?
You guys can find me at Instagram, Tattoos by Spirit, website, Tattoos by Spirit, TikTok, Tattoos by Spirit. Hey.
That's awesome. Thank you for coming, Spirit. It's great to see you. And yeah, you can find Spirit's work
All the time.
at Tattoos by Spirit. Love it. All right. So, Kyle, you're up.
Oh,
Give
shit.
us your sign-offs, buddy.
My name's Kyle Olson. I tattoo out of Tucson, Arizona. If you want to get a hold of me, more than welcome to do so on Instagram at Olson_tattoos, OLSON. You can also reach out at trinityartcollective.com. And doing a special rate on roses. So if you're in the area and like realistic roses, I'd love to talk to you. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you both for being here, and thank you everybody for watching us. We really appreciate it. This has been Drawing for Tattooers. I'm your host, James. You can find me on the internet at Tattooing Wisdom. Join us next week when we have Fireside Zone Jake Meeks will be joining us.
Oh,
so
cool.
I hope you guys can make it too, because get a chance to meet up with Jake, ask him questions and stuff. He's a very consummate tattooer and a great teacher as well. So looking forward to meeting up with Jake Meeks next week. Probably should tease that earlier. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. If you're all the way here, then you're definitely going to tune in next week. If you watch this long, then we'll see you next week. That's for sure. Anyway, all right. Thank 100%. You all. Happy drawing, everybody, and we'll see you next stream. All right. Bye.